Head back to the Ticket Pro Dome, north of Johannesburg, where the annual Photo and Film Expo is currently underway. Sam Marshall, good morning to you.
Good morning, Lebo. Good morning to the viewers once again. Rightfully said, we are coming live from the Ticket Pro Dome in the north of Johannesburg from the Photo and Film Expo. When we broadcasted to the 7 o'clock audience, SABC 2 audience that is, we showed you these really mesmerizing, beautiful visuals. And that was courtesy of Ilse Moore Photography. They are debuting a purposefully built underwater studio that they're exhibiting here at the Photo and Film Expo. Ilse, good morning. Thank you so much for making our opening look spectacular. Talk to me about underwater photography.
Underwater photography is still a very unknown, it's not very well known in South Africa yet. It's still a new market, but there's a lot of new interest in it. People are starting to discover underwater photography. It's a possibility. It offers new possibilities for photographers. It offers new possibilities for fashion designers, for advertisers, and it's nice to have something that we can actually offer to the South African community that is new, fresh, exciting, and that opens doors for a whole new level of art and fashion photography, and like I said, creative possibilities.
How does somebody get into underwater photography? I mean, there's a couple of concepts we talked about before we started this actual interview on air that's completely mind-blowing. I don't even know how somebody would stumble onto this art.
It is a bit hard. It's something that you would only really that you should really only take on once you've really mastered what you already do in your photography business. So in terms of the gear that you use, you'll have to upgrade a lot of, or at least get the right kind of lenses that will allow you to shoot in an underwater setting, and as well as proper housings for your camera, a lot of safety stuff that you need to keep in mind to keep your camera gear safe. And it's a bit hard. There's courses available that you can do. There's a lot of online work as well that people who are willing to share their knowledge and so that you can look at, and then after that you start practicing. You just do it over and over and over.
You and your husband, Sean, decided to build a purposeful built underwater studio. You normally shoot in pools, dams, wherever the client wants you to go. But talk to me about the design of this underwater studio, because it's being debuted for the first time in South Africa to South African audiences. It's probably the first one built on the African continent, purposefully built for photography.
Yes, probably is. If there are some around there, we haven't discovered them yet. But yeah, this is basically, it's designed and engineered to fit the same dimensions as a 6-meter shipping container. So it's got everything that you need to lift it up onto a truck. We can basically take it anywhere we like. It takes a lot of water. As you can see, the water's deep enough. There's a lot of different lighting setups that we can create in there. We can build our own sets. We can actually do in our studio now for the first time exactly what we want, and we're not dependent on swimming pools, or we don't have to worry about the clarity of water of someone else. Yeah. We have a fully controlled environment now that we can use to create shoots.
I can only imagine that you talked about the gear, you talked about the underwater studio, but the models that you work with, the models have to be very specialized. It just can't be any ordinary model. Even if it was a catwalk model, there's something unique to the models that you work with.
Yes, in fact, the models that work best is people that have some dancing background. They have a very graceful way of moving. So I like people like performers and dancers and even actors. They have to really put themselves into that role, because as soon as we go underwater, it's all them. I can't control what they're doing. So I often train the models myself to get into that mindset, so that once they're in, they get lost in the same world that we are in, and they can translate that for the photo so that I get the shot that I need.
So an average photo shoot, we were talking about this a little bit earlier, that you could basically do a shoot for an hour and you could only have 1 or 2 images that actually works.
That is very possible, yes, especially if you work with someone new or maybe a private client, because we do work with the public as well. There's often people that come to us for maternity shoots and so on, and then I take them through it. I do train them and I try to prepare them for what's coming, but then after an hour, like you say, you can't get 20 great shots necessarily. I might only get 6 or 8 shots, but then with a professional model, obviously the whole process is easy, and they understand what I want, and we get a few more, yeah.
Let's talk about something else that I know Lebo will be deeply interested in. Lebo's my co-host at our studios in Auckland Park. You also work with South Africa's first professional mermaid. Do I understand that correctly? A professional mermaid, and the only professional mermaid in South Africa, as far as I understand it.
Yeah, absolutely. She is. She's a lovely woman. She's a lovely mermaid. She's an Atlantean goddess, really. Yeah, she's South Africa's first professional mermaid. She performs. She goes to corporate events and parties, and of course, this tank is just the next level for her. You know, it's her tank, really. You know, she will swim around, and she's just happy to put herself in that space, and that's who she is. First mermaid. She had a perfectly beautiful tail made and everything, and I'm very proud to work with her.
That's amazing. You've got a couple of workshops. I know that as the attendees come through the door today and tomorrow, there'll be a couple of workshops. What are those workshops focusing on?
I'm basically giving people an introduction to what it takes to do underwater photography. A lot of it involves the gear that I use, the type of lighting setups, but I also give them a bit of an insight into the type of things they need to look at if they want to start underwater photography themselves. And then what's lovely is they can actually see the process behind us here happening. They can actually watch what we do, and I take them through it. I give them a good talk about who I'm using, why I'm using them, why we're shooting the way we do in order to get the type of photos that we do. So yeah.
Underwater photography in comparison to the rest of the world, where are we? I obviously get the sense that from an Africa perspective, we are lagging behind a little bit.
Yes, a little bit. We don't have access to everything that they have overseas, but there's, in the last 2 years, I would say, there's a huge influx of interest into the underwater photography world, and I see it more and more. Even 4 years ago, when just after I started, there were far less underwater photographers, and now this interest is stirring up, and people are actually becoming interested in taking their photography to the next level. And it's nice because I think it raises the level. We've got wonderful photographers in South Africa. There's just not that many doing this yet. Yeah, and it's also, if you look at people in America and so on, I think the information is just much more freely available to them.
And how's the industry responded to underwater photography?
It's still new. People are getting used to it only now. I think the more they start seeing it, the more they will start seeing the possibilities of it. But at the moment, we're just trying to get people eased into the idea of professional mermaids and underwater bridal shoots and so on. So yes.
Okay, Ilse Moore from the Ilse Moore Photography that built a specialized underwater studio. That'll be on display here at the Photo and Film Expo. Lebo, I know this is something you could do part-time. A professional mermaid. Can you imagine? I'll be the photographer. Let's go back to our studios in Johannesburg.